The Victoria and Albert Museum in the UK had the first public viewing of the final artworks of M.F. Hussain in May last year. Britain's State Modern Art Gallery hosted its maiden India exhibition in a new collaboration with Delhi-based collective Khoj. The Guggenheim Museum in New York had a retrospective of V.S. Gaitonde. Select works by Andy Warhol and other top global artists were exhibited by Sotheby's in Delhi, along with Indian masters Hussain, Gaitonde and Bhupen Khakkar for an auction. Terminal 2 of Chhatrapati Shivaji International Airport in Mumbai opened with an art museum. While Tayyab Mehta was top-selling artist in 2014, with this trust bull grossing over 17 crore rupees at the Christie's second India auction in December 2014, his contemporary V.S. Gaitonde is still the all-time most expensive artist in an auction held in India, raking in 23.7 crore rupees for this at the Christie's auction the year before. The country's art market confidence has ended 34% higher than 12 months ago. In fact, the confidence is at the highest since November 2007. Still, in 2014, India has a share of just 0.12% of the global public auction sales during the year. So despite all the growing interest and enthusiasm that we see for art at museums, at art fairs, not least of which at the India Art Fair in Delhi this weekend, how do things stack up currently for the Indian art market? To discuss this, we have Yamini Mehta, Senior Director and International Head of South Asian Art at Sotheby's, Simon Shaw, Co-Head Impressionist and Modern Art Worldwide at Sotheby's, and Neha Kirpal, who is Founder and Director of India Art Fair. All right, Simon, let me come to you first. As far as the Indian art market is concerned, the question is, are we just seeing a revival of interest, or is it an inflection point that we are at? As far as other world markets go and their trajectory of growth, how does the Indian art market at the current point stack up?
Well, it's a good question. What I would say is, I think it's early days. We saw, for example, a few years ago with mainland China, an inflection point where collectors there, having voraciously bought up wonderful works of Chinese art, began to look to global artists and began collecting at sales in New York and London in a very serious way. What I would say is it feels there's an energy and an enthusiasm here in India that we're heading towards a similar point.
Yamini, what do you think about the growth in the Indian art market?
I think we're still at a very nascent stage where the art market is concerned. When you look at the India scene in the context of the global art market, it is a drop in the bucket. But I do see that our collectors are growing in both depth and breadth. So some of them might be looking at contemporary art, some of them might be looking at the modern movements, which is a very solid market segment, and then others are looking at branching out to international contemporary.
Neha, you've had the India Art Fair over a period of 5 to 6 years. If you were to look at the art buying gentry, what kind of changes have you noticed in them?
A lot of international art is being bought now by Indians, which is a sort of a new trend we've seen, and it's a growing trend.
But if you were to talk specifically about the nature of art and the kind of artists who are creating that art, what changes are we seeing there?
The change that we've seen over the last few years in the artists is firstly a tier of sort of young emerging artists that are now coming into the art fair, even shown by established galleries. So a lot of experimental work, a lot of photography work, video art has been a big trend at the fair over the last few years, and this year I think it's really performance.
Around the world, we're seeing a rise in the popularity of contemporary art. What do you think has led to that surge, considering it's the masters that have traditionally stood the test of time?
I would say that contemporary art in general, there's an excitement about, for certain collectors, about knowing where the art is coming from, knowing the artists in the studios, and growing in a sense as both a collector and a patron and an artist. And so, that might appeal to some collectors who would prefer to have that dialogue and that intellectual stimulation, as opposed to someone who's been collecting artists who have long ago passed.
Neha, for the longest time, the masters have ruled, but now we're seeing a lot of Indian contemporary art come into focus. Lots more action over there. What do you think is driving it?
The younger people interacting now with contemporary art are creating a contemporary culture. There is a vocabulary that's really international, both in terms of artistic practice as well as in terms of the viewership. And you're seeing people as they travel more and more around the world. They see museums and institutions in different parts of the world. They engage with luxury lifestyle at different levels. Art is really the next thing that they want to bring in. There's been a growing level of awareness. I feel we're dealing with a rather well-aware, interested audience today.
Considering your understanding of world art markets, would you say what we're seeing is a revival of sorts since the financial crisis of 2008, or would you actually see it as a tipping point?
I mean, I think we've seen obviously some little bumps in the road where the Indian art market has been developing over the last 10 years, certainly after 2009. But what is happening is a turning point, as you mentioned, but also we're at the beginning of what we feel is an expansion. And I think what we believe will happen over the next 15 years is that we might see in the next 15 years the type of prices and values that may have encompassed the last 20 or you know, maybe in the next few years we'll see our first $5 million painting, we'll see our $20 million sale, and increasing to higher and higher lengths, because we do see that there are more and more opportunities for collectors to come into our space and buy. And
Yamini, how has connectivity changed the ways of the art world, the ways it functions? Give us an example.
I think connectivity has been a boon for the art market, and primarily because it has allowed people to communicate about art, share art. You don't always have to fly somewhere to see a work. I mean, you can have it emailed. And the biggest thing about it is that, you know, people may have thought that the art scene or art market was very opaque, but what connectivity has done has made it far more transparent and easier to come into the art market and educate oneself. So I think it's been a fantastic progress for the art market in general.
Well, that's right. Social media and digital connectivity has really revolutionized the way the art world works. It's made it more global. Collectors have immediate access to all kinds of work which previously they'd have had to travel, for example, in order to see. I think the immediate impact of that is to see a very rapid growth and an excitement about collecting. It used to be a very elite activity with a small group of collectors, and now it's something that is much more understood, is much more talked about, and is much more central to people's lives than it used to be.
Simon, you've seen the sale of a modern work of art at a historic level, $120 million. With this one, The Scream by Edvard Munch. I want to ask you, how long before Indian art sees that kind of price at an auction?
Well, what I can say is it took about 70 or 80 years before The Scream by Edvard Munch got to any real celebrity or any real value, so who knows. But let's hope the next Scream is by an Indian artist in the future.
Now that may not happen this year, but Neha, give us a sense of what to look out for at the India Art Fair this year.
We have a performance hour from 6 to 7 p.m. I wouldn't miss that. There are some very interesting space-specific installations around. The Francesco tent is being shown for the first time. There is a Polish artist doing a site-specific work, and there's a graffiti artist who's working on commissioned vandalism across 200 meters of the roadway. So there are several ways in which we've brought the spaces into the art form that I would highly recommend you catch.